Hello, my name is Dan Rudolph, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a lifelong member here at St. John's, and I am a member of your leadership board. And it is an honor to speak with you today. It's an honor to serve in that capacity. And we've got a real important message for you today, and I hope you'll stick with me. I'm going to ask you for about 30 minutes of your time to go through a very important conversation and some education, because it's going to lead us into a next phase of conversation between the leadership here at St. John's and our congregational members about the next piece or phase of the campus master plan. Now, for some of you, you may not even know what I just said, campus master plan. So we'll get into that in a second. But what our intent is here today is to take kind of a 15-year look back over what's occurred here at St. John's. And why is that important? It's important because as we started having the conversation with the leadership board, internal conversation at our board level, we quickly realized that we had a lot of new members to St. John's on our board. And a lot of those new members never went through what occurred here in the last 15 years at St. John's, discussing the campus master plan that we are in the midst of. So we took the time internally to educate the board members who were new members to St. John's, and it was very fruitful. Out of that came the thought that we also have a lot of members here at St. John's. We bring in a lot of new members every year, and so a lot of you have not been involved with what's taken place over the last 15 years. And what's taken place has been very extensive. So today, we're going to do a 15-year review. We're going to go back in time, bring you up to today, talk through what's occurred so that it sets the foundation for the next step in our congregational conversations about the campus master plan. So let's get into it. What was going on at St. John's in early 2007? So St. John's just moved to policy-based governance. For many of you, you may not even know what that means. Prior to 2007, we were working under a board committee structure. We had a church council, and then under the church council, we had the Board of Elders, Board of Trustees, Board of Christian Education, Board of Missions, and so forth. All lay-led. The lay leaders, the congregational members, ran the church. At least that's the structure that was in place, and the staff was here every day doing what the staff was doing, ministry on a daily basis. It didn't function real well. Even though most LCMS churches today are run under that structure, the St. John's leadership had been researching a new structure, policy-based governance. Very quickly, what policy-based governance was that there was a board, the leadership board of today, and underneath, and the board responsibilities were to write policy, hence the term policy-based governance. What that policy did was to set fences for the staff to run the daily workings of the church and to meet the ends or the goals of ministry that the leadership put out in place after talking to the congregational members. Those policies kind of said what they couldn't do. Here's the goals, go accomplish the goals. Here's what you can't do to accomplish those goals. We brought people in from the outside of the church, educated the whole congregation. We agreed to move to that sort of governance. It brought a lot more accountability to the way things are run within St. John's. Ministry thrived, and we've been working under it since in a very, very positive and godly way. We had two pastors back in 2007, Pastor Jeff Dorth, Pastor Bob Hayner. Today we have more than two pastors. Average church attendance was approximately 820. Today it's 650. COVID certainly has had a great impact on average church attendance. The campus facilities were absolutely deteriorating. Prior to 2007, actually probably prior to 2004, we had some pretty difficult financial years at St. John's. Lost a lot of money. Because of that, we did not have any funds to stick into this campus and keep it up to date. There was a long list of deferred maintenance that needed to take place. School enrollment at the time was about 184 students. Today, that's 243. Opposite direction of attendance, absolutely going the right way. And there were some things that we'll talk about, school choice, that came into existence over the last couple of years that has really blossomed enrollment at the school. Circle of Friends, which was the precursor to the ECC, Early Childhood Center, had approximately 50 children at that time. It was located in the basement of the church and had many opportunities to improve and growth opportunities as well. The decision was made to stay in the heart of the city. You may have heard that term, staying in the heart of the city. It was a very large conversation that took place between the leadership and the congregation members. There was a time where we thought about leaving this campus, buying acreage south of the city, building a whole new campus, moving outside the heart of the city. It was honestly a very, very controversial conversation that took place. The congregation ultimately decided that we wanted to stay in the heart of the city. When that decision was made, we knew that we needed to make some serious decisions regarding this campus. This campus was built in the 50s, and we needed to keep it up and prepare it for future ministry for the generations that are to come. We've also talked about St. John's Foundation. In our worship services and in our ministry today, St. John's Foundation didn't exist back in 2007. What we had an endowment fund. That was the only other source of potential funding for ministry at St. John's. But the way the endowment fund worked was there was this base of funds, large base of funds, several $100,000, but we couldn't use that money specifically for ministry. We could only use the investment offshoots of those funds for the ministry, and that was a very small amount of money. So we knew at the time that we needed to find different ways to fund ministry. You had your school tuition, you had your early childhood fees, you certainly had the offerings and tithes of our membership, but we knew certain things were going in certain directions, and we needed to seriously look at the future of funding for ministry to keep it going in a thriving way. So discussion was starting about creating a foundation. From 2007 to 2009, we kind of stepped into a journey as a congregation to recraft a new mission and vision statement. Okay, there was an existing mission statement at St. John's. The problem is we didn't live it. It wasn't active. People didn't know what it was. If you asked somebody what the mission statement was, nobody could repeat it. Okay, so we knew we needed to step in and recreate something that we could remember, that was extremely active, and we needed to get congregational support behind it. It was an 18-month process of meeting with the members, having listening sessions, and then honing together what the new mission and vision statement was going to be. So the new mission statement, as we talk about it all the time, is connecting, caring, and sharing in Christ. And the new vision statement, discipleship in as many places as possible. Why are those two statements so important? I'm here to tell you, as leaders in the congregation today, there aren't any decisions, both staff decisions or lay decisions that are made, that if they do not run through those two statements, they do not happen anymore. So if we're thinking about creating a new ministry, we look at our mission and vision statement and we ask the question, does it meet those two things? If it doesn't meet those two statements, we don't do it. If it does, then we look into doing it. It has become part of our DNA here at St. John's. In mid-2010, we started a 30-year planning process, okay? The leadership board started conversations with all different kinds of ministry groups, all of them. We talked with staff, with the management team. We met with all kinds of ministry groups, and there were a lot of them at the time, to discuss and listen about what some of the challenges were in ministry, what the opportunities were in ministry. We educated, we listened, they as well listened. Out of those conversations, three major things came to light. The first one child safety for the Circle of Friends. Circle of Friends was located in the church basement here, okay? It was maxed out in size. They had taken every closet they could to expand it. There were serious safety concerns. If there was a fire, how would we get the children out? There was many entrances to this building. Things needed to change in regards to the children's safety at Circle of Friends. The second thing, fellowship space. We knew we needed to grow fellowship space. Okay, if we wanted to connect and disciple, we needed more fellowship space, and we were lacking it here on campus. The third thing, campus upgrades. I talked about the deterioration of the property, the long list of deferred maintenance, and it was long. We needed, since we made the decision to stay in the heart of the city, we needed to work the list of major projects that needed to be taken care of on this campus so that we could keep this campus the way it should be for future ministry. Okay? So the focus of the leadership board was, this is very, very important. The focus was to take the passion that the generation before us had. Okay, the generation before us built this campus. This campus was built in the 1950s. That generation had passion about the future of God's ministry here at this campus for future generations. We are those future generations. We're 70 years removed from when this campus was built. So that generation before us, the passion that they had about the future of God's ministry at St. John's. And we need to make, as leaders and as a congregation, we need to make the same passionate decisions for the next future generations that lie ahead of us. The decisions we make today will affect the next 70 years of ministry here at St. John's and the people involved with that. In 2012, the leadership of the church created what was the Phase 1 Identification Committee. And that committee was formed with the goal to identify priorities based upon dollars raised. So we knew we were going to have to do a capital campaign because there was a lot that needed to be done. But we needed to identify and prioritize the list of projects that needed to be accomplished. During that conversation, we started out talking about 3 phases. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, each one of those phases being approximately 10 years long. Okay? As the conversation continued and we worked through it, we kind of shifted gears a little bit. And we started talking more short-term versus long-term, or needs versus wants. We needed to look seriously at short-term needs, short-term wants, long-term wants. After discussion with staff and pastors, the people who work the ministry every single day, it was decided that we needed to somehow educate our congregational members on the complexity and size of the ministry here at St. John's. As long as I've been in leadership, I have always stated that our typical congregational member has no idea of what goes on this campus on a daily basis. Okay? A lot of people come and worship on Sunday, which is great. Some are involved in various ministry groups, which is great. But you may only touch a small piece of the campus. Okay? Back then, we said we've got to figure out a way to educate our members on what goes on and what the challenges are. So we decided to do what was called Connections Tours. And I got to tell you, being involved in leadership for a lot of years here at St. John's, it is one of the most fruitful and fun and exciting things that I've ever been involved with in any discussion that we've ever had here. What we decided to do was to take small groups of people, 5 up to 20, and take them on a walking tour of every nook and cranny of this campus. We showed them where offices were made out of closets, where roofs were leaking, floors were falling apart, and areas that we needed to expand, safety issues. And we took them on a 45-minute tour of the campus and showed them everything. People saw parts of this campus and buildings that they never even knew existed. We also developed a Did You Know document and a video for those who could not attend one of those Connections tours. And the output of doing those was absolutely amazing. People were flabbergasted at what they saw. Absolutely was amazing. Also in 2012, the foundation which we had been talking about creating was actually created. Again, the foundation was created to be able to support ministry long-term, educate people on the importance of putting St. John's into their wills and putting some of their estates back to God's ministry. That work has been great, and the funding has been awesome, and because of that, we're going to show you a list in a little bit of the work that's been done because of that ministry. Okay, on the screen is a picture of kind of the campus master plan, all right? We prioritized the list of items that needed to be accomplished, and we said, how are we going to do it? What do we need to do on this campus to actually do the ministry we know needs to be done for the future? The middle section, the three black areas, are the three potential pieces that were talked about. The middle one was the piece that was first decided to be done, and that is what today is the Early Childhood Center. Okay, the piece to the right is a section of building that's added on to the church proper. That area was going to be used for additional office space, for additional fellowship space. The piece to the left, to the south, on the south end of the school, was going to be a section of building where a new gym was going to be built and more classrooms were going to be built and an area for community use was going to be created. So those were kind of the three phases that we were thinking about. From there, we needed to put together a budget of everything that was on the first piece of the list of campus upgrades that needed to take place. That budget ended up coming through at $4.1 million. That $4.1 million was not all three pieces of those buildings. It was only the Early Childhood Center and then other things being done with the existing parts of the campus. So that $4.1 million budget was established, and a capital campaign was started. We brought in help from the LCMS. That group came in. We created REACH. REACH was our capital campaign model. Pledges came in from over 70% of the congregation. I got to repeat that. Pledges came in from over 70% of our membership here at St. John's. The average engagement is 35%. When I told you that after those connection tours, the congregation owned it, they saw it, they believed it, they touched it, and then they pledged accordingly. That was an absolute amazement of ownership that took place in regards to that capital campaign. Of that $4.1 million major capital went to the following projects. So one of the first steps we did was there was a house across the street. It was owned by Pastor Mumm. Pastor Mumm was a previous pastor here at St. John's for over 50 years. Pastor Mumm passed away. The house that he owned went to his children. We discussed purchasing that home from his children, and we purchased the home. Today, back then we turned it into the church offices, and today it still exists as the church offices. The Early Childhood Center broke ground, and in September of 2013, it opened up, and it was an amazing thing. I tell you, the growth model that we saw for the Early Childhood Center was large. The need in the community was extensive. And by 2007, we had 50 kids. 2013, approximately 65. We were maxed out in the areas that we could put children. We thought that over a 3-year period of time, that might grow another 100. Okay? In the first year, it grew from 65 to 180. The growth was astronomical. With that came plenty of challenges, trying to staff it and create programs for it, but God had his hands in everything, absolutely had his hands in everything, and it's been a blessing ever since to this community. The church fellowship space that we talked about, the need for additional and improved fellowship space, that also occurred. Remodeling occurred in the sanctuary. The area where the church offices were is currently the gathering space today. We ripped out those offices, moved them into the Mumm property across the way, and then expanded our fellowship space in the church proper. Air conditioning was installed in 2013. Prior to that, we did not have air conditioning. Can't tell you how warm it got in this place in the middle of summer, prior to that, but finally, after all these years, air conditioning was installed into the sanctuary. Stained glass windows. I stand in front of this church as I'm giving this presentation, and I look around, and I continually see some of the most beautiful stained glass windows I've ever seen in a sanctuary in my life. Those stained glass windows were over 60 years old, and they were absolutely falling apart. They were leaking. They were just crumbling at our fingertips. We had to bring somebody in from the outside, experts in renovation and restoration of stained glass windows, and that whole project was a sizable project to be done. The church organ. Church organ was kind of in the same place. It was at the end of its life as well, too, completely falling apart. It was an extensive project as well, and a project where we were going to put monies aside for future completion of restoring the organ or putting in a new organ. We knew we weren't going to be able to do all of it at one time, so we were going to phase that project in. Ultimately, overall receipts for REACH, the capital campaign, came in at $2.5 million for all the pledges. So that left us at a crossroads. A crossroads that was difficult to determine. So we had a $1.6 million gap. We had $4.1 million worth of projects that needed to be completed, and we had pledges of $2.5 million. So we could have made the decision to only do $2.5 million worth of projects, or make the decision to do all $4.1 million worth of projects and take on a $1.6 million loan. We chose the second option. We decided it was time. They needed to be done. We made the decision. We were staying here. We need to take care of this campus. So we took on the loan of $1.6 million. As time went on, and as we worked through those projects, and the REACH campaign kind of came to an end over time, some other things rose to the surface that we felt needed to be completed. So we extended our REACH campaign, and it was called Extending Our REACH. And the three things were, we knew we needed to replace the playground equipment as it was placed where the early childhood center was going to be built. It was at the end of its life anyway. We were going to build new playground equipment on the south side of the school. But as we started that project, we decided that we were going to do discipleship in as many places as possible and reach out to our community. And we created Sunshine Community Park. We expanded what the playground was going to be, and we opened it up to a park for the community. Also, the property to the south of the church office became available for purchase, and we stepped in and purchased it. One of the pieces of the campus master plan was to purchase 4 properties on the west side of 6th Avenue to be used in the future for additional parking. Ultimately, we took the Mumm property and turned it into church offices. The vacant lot to the north of the Mumm property was gifted to St. John's prior to that. This home became available, we purchased it, leaving one home on the corner of 6th and Decorah yet to become available and purchased. It was also decided to finish the organ upgrade project. We weren't going to phase it in. We were going to do the whole project at one time, and we chose to do that. Some other things from 2016 to the present that really affected St. John's. School choice became available, and we decided to step into it. There was a lot of conversation around that. The history of the school enrollment was one where we had real high enrollment early on, and then enrollment fell off, and the LCMS school system, a lot of schools were closing. Schools that were not connected to an early childhood center were absolutely closing. It was just happening all over the United States. God stepped in and created Circle of Friends and ultimately the Early Childhood Center, and that has been a feeder into our school system and kept our schools strong. Then school choice came into the picture, and we chose to step into that, and enrollment blossomed. With the help of the foundation that had now been created, monies had come in due to estates of our members. There was a list of things that the foundation has stepped in to help do. Some of those are, for those of you that were around in August of 2017, you'll remember that we had a 100-year rainstorm. here in West Bend. Fifth Avenue flooded. All the water ran into the Early Childhood Center, ran into the school, some even into the church. This occurred 2 days before school was supposed to open for this season. And with the help of our Lord, the help of the foundation, the help of our members, and the help of people outside of St. John's, we were able to raise enough monies for that cleanup. The cleanup was done immediately, but it created it was quite a cost, honestly. And the Lord helped provide for that and clean that up. The fourth property became available on 6th and Decorah in 2018, and we stepped in and we purchased that home as well. A conversation surrounding Faith Haven started to take place. For those of you who don't know what Faith Haven is another property that St. John's owns between Allenton and West Bend. We stepped into a large piece of property that could be used for ministry in the future. And we were paying on that property for quite a long time, but we didn't know what we were going to do with the property. The property was starting to be overgrown, and we needed to make a decision. We needed to figure out if it was going to be part of the future of ministry here at St. John's. So at a congregational meeting, we broached that topic. Are we keeping it, or are we going to sell it? What should we do? The congregation stepped forward and said, we want to keep it, which was great to hear, because there are so many opportunities with that piece of property. But we knew that we needed to spend money on that property. We needed, just like we needed to spend money on this campus, we needed to spend money on that piece of property as well too. So a group of people came together. We created the Faith Haven Maintenance Committee. It was formed. The foundation stepped in after they heard the needs from that group of what needed to be done. And the foundation purchased a new lawnmower. They purchased a new gator. We built a new south entrance road. We updated the parking area. The group of people has been passionate, for sure, to say the least. A passionate group of people who love the property. They have been out there working tirelessly to clean up the property, cut back the foliage, and there's all kinds of ministry that goes on out there. Outdoor worship, and lots of ministry groups meet out there. There's cross-country meets that take place out there. It is a beautiful property to walk. Religious sayings all over the place, and it's just something to experience, and I encourage you to do so. The future of Faith Haven is still unknown in the fact that what else could we do with the property? That will probably be part of the conversation as we continue to move forward. There's more that can be done out there. Also, we put in a new gym floor. So as a child that came up through the grade school here at St. John's, I know how treacherous that old gym floor could be. Tile floor, very slippery. All my children went through there. I coached on there for years. It was time, and the foundation helped put in a new gym floor. It's beautiful if you haven't seen it. Worship AV upgrades right here in the sanctuary. Okay, a lot of our AV equipment was just getting old. We needed to expand it, update it, new screens, et cetera, et cetera. New roof on the school. School roof was leaking. It needed to be replaced. That is not a small project. We paid off the Faith Haven mortgage. Burned the mortgage in 2022. It was wonderful to see. Air conditioning was added to the school. I said air conditioning was added to the church in 2013, while air conditioning was added to the school in 2022. With the growth of enrollment at the school, we needed more classrooms. Suddenly, the younger classrooms, we needed 2 of each of them, and so we needed to continue to expand. Well, we have a finite amount of space over there at the school. So what did we do? The decision was made that the library on the second floor was going to be converted into 2 separate classrooms, and that library was going to be moved into the church basement, which was just completed prior to the school year. And unfortunately, because of the things that are occurring in the world today, safety measures for our children have just moved up the priority list, and for our staff. And so there has been installation of a lot of safety measures done at the school and the church over the last year, and those will continue. Also, in 2021, the leadership board wanted to create what was called the Strategic Planning Committee. It was kind of a multi-generational group, staff and lay-led, came together and we wanted to look a little bit longer term on the strategy of ministry at St. John's and what needed to be done. So that group did a SWOT analysis. If you don't know what a SWOT analysis is, it's looking at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Looking at what you do good, looking at what you don't do so good, looking at what the opportunities are out there, if resources are unlimited, etc. So the group worked on that for about a year, brought that data back to the leadership board, and the leadership board will use that for future ministry planning as well. Okay, so that brings you up to today. So where do we go from here? So we did this presentation at our last congregational meeting in November, okay? And after that, we got good reviews off of it, honestly, and we said, you know what? We need to get this message into the hands of the rest of our membership. That's why I'm speaking to you today. So from here, we need to continue that conversation. So it is the intent of the leadership board to kind of go 2 by 2, like Noah's Ark, out to our ministry groups, to our various staff and leadership groups, and talk to them. So between now and the end of summer of this year, we're going to do that. We're going to get together with staff, with management, with the foundation board, with the spiritual health ministry team, with as many of the ministry groups as will have us, and then to the congregation in general, because there are members who are not involved in any ministry groups, but we still encourage you to be engaged in the conversation. And then we're also going to try to connect with community leaders. Okay, we are a connections church. We do discipleship in as many places as possible, and we need to figure out the best way we can be a partner with our community. How can we be the best partner with our community? From summer and into fall, we're going to gather that data from all those forums and meetings that we're going to have. And then in fall and through the winter, we're going to share and educate our findings back to the congregation. Early in 2024, kind of a year from now, we will then take all of that information and we will determine God's plan, looking at the opportunities that are in front of us and the challenges that we face. We will take that information, the leadership board will fold that into the next set of ends policies for the years 2024 and beyond. Why is this going to take 18 months? Because we want to involve everybody. We want to take the proper amount of time and get it right. Okay? Time does not need to be a limiting factor in anything that we do. Sometimes it feels like it needs to be, but we don't need to let it be. Time is something that man worries about. God doesn't worry about that as much. Okay? We need to remember that. We're then going to incorporate the campus master plan into the next 3 years' ends policies. Okay? So what can you do? What can you do? First of all, you can engage. Okay? I implore you. I challenge you to engage in this conversation. When we did it 10 years ago, it was so fruitful. It was such a blessing. People enjoyed it. Okay? But you got to participate. Please participate. When we call you, if you're a leader of a ministry group, take our call and invite us in. We want to talk to you. We want to listen to you. We want to hear you. We want to help educate. We want to do all of that. If you're not part of a ministry group, come to the open forums once we put them on the calendar. Okay? Engage. Listen, talk, be part of it. Okay? And the other thing you can do is pray. Please pray. Pray for what God's plan is for us. This isn't our plan. This isn't man's plan. It's not our leadership's plan or our staff's plan. This is God's plan. We're just tools to do the plan. It's our job to listen to God, to pray to God, to ask for His assistance. Okay? And then work it. Okay? Our ministry is supposed to be full of action. Okay? We need to dig in, and we need to figure out what we believe God's plan is for St. John's today and into the future. Right? So pray, because I'm telling you, the devil will try to disrupt. He will try to disrupt. He loves it when we're trying to work on this stuff so that he can try to stick his head into things and try to disrupt it. So please pray. Okay. So you'll hear more from the leadership board as time goes on. You'll be hearing from some of us directly to come on in and talk to you. And again, please engage. And thank you for your time today, and God bless. Have a great day.